Good morning. Welcome to the Addington Highlands Committee of Adjustment meeting Thursday, June the 18th, 2026. I'll call the meeting to order. Today's meeting is being streamed live via the Township of Addington Highlands YouTube channel. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Committee of Adjustment, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone invited to speak will be recorded, and the voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or secretary have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of the live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with Ontario's Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information provided for or at a public meeting / consultation or other public process are considered part of the public record. Members of the committee, staff, delegations, and attendees should be mindful of using names of individuals or entities when discussing matters in public. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. As per the Township's procedure bylaw as amended, all votes during electronic meetings will be recorded votes. All members of Committee of Adjustment are participating in person from council chambers. Applicants and any other members of the public may participate in person or electronically during this meeting. First item is approval of the agenda of the Committee Adjustment. Moved by Deputy Reeve Hook, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any additions anyone wants? Noted. Call the vote. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Hook?
Yes.
Councillor Levier?
Yes.
Councillor Yench?
Yes.
And that motion is carried. Adoption of the minutes of the Committee Adjustment meeting dated December 10th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Yench, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any errors, omissions? None noted. Call the vote. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Hook?
Yes.
Councillor Levier?
Yes.
Councillor Yench?
Yes.
And that motion's carried. Any business arising from the minutes? None noted. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Deputy Reeve Hook, go ahead.
I'd like to disclose a perception of conflict of interest. As you know, my brother is here. We're siblings. And as I understand it, I can participate in the discussion and I can even vote, but I probably won't vote on this case.
Thank you. Next, we have no applications for minor variance. So move on, applications for consent. The first one is item 7.1, severance 2006/01 with Hook. It's being brought forward from deferral. And we'll turn that over to Patricia to provide an update.
Thank you. So this is an application by Tracy and Sandy Hook to create one new lot consisting of the commercial and residential use that is existing on that property. The property is 100 acres in size with approximately 400 meters of frontage, and it has a rural and highway commercial zoning, split zoning. In the official plan, it is designated as rural. And as mentioned, there is an existing business and residential use on the property. The entrance is off of Highway 41. Unfortunately, the report was published in the later part of the evening last night, so I was going to go over it a little more in depth so that it is to the benefit of the applicant and to the committee. So the application is to sever approximately 10 acres or 4-hectare parcel from the approximately 100.47 acres of the 40.66 hectare subject property. The proposed severance requests to sever the existing dwelling and business, as I mentioned, leaving the remainder of the vacant parcel for future development. The subject property is located on the west side of Highway 41, south of Road 506, and is legally described as Lot 8, Range A west of Addington Road, Anglesea, except the Kings Highway, Highway 41 in Addington Highlands. It is approximately 100.47 acres with frontage of 406 meters on the highway. It's developed with the house and building supply consisting of 3 buildings, and the existing dwelling and businesses are serviced by the private well and septic. The property is designated rural area in the Township of Addington Highlands official plan, with split zoning being rural and general commercial in the Township zoning bylaw. To sever the existing buildings, supply, business, and accessory dwelling would leave a remainder parcel for the vacant future residential development. The severed lot contains the existing dwelling, business, and driveway, and has an area of approximately 10 acres with approximately 164 meters of frontage along Highway 41. There is no proposed new development on the severed lot at this time. The retained lands will have approximately 90 acres with approximately 242 meters of frontage along Highway 41. Access to the retained is proposed via new entrance connecting Highway 41 at the south end of the subject lands. That entrance exists currently. While no development is proposed in retained lands as part of this application, the future residential use is anticipated. The planner conducted a policy analysis which included the following legislation and planning documents: the provincial planning statement 2024, the County of Lennox and Addington official plan, the Township of Addington Highlands official plan, and our zoning bylaw. The provincial policy statement provides that policy direction on matters of provincial interest and requires municipal councils be consistent with the PPS and carry out the responsibilities under the Act. The application as presented is consistent with the PPS as the existing and proposed use is permitted on rural lands. The existing and proposed use is compatible with the rural landscape of the township and can be sustained on the rural services. The creation of the new lots and their existing and proposed uses comply with the minimum distance separation formulae, and the proposed lot creation will protect the long-term viability of the existing major facilities. The proposed lot is suitable for long-term provision of individual on-site sewage services and individual on-site water services. The proposed lot creation is not anticipated to negatively impact the natural heritage features or their identified functions, and the proposed lot is located outside of natural hazard area and not anticipated to negatively impact public health or safety. Overall, the application for the consent, together with the recommended conditions of approval, is consistent with the provincial policy statement. And then did an analysis of the county's official plan. Schedule A of the county official plan identifies the subject lands as rural, which permits agricultural, rural, commercial, and residential uses. Schedule B does not identify any natural heritage features on or adjacent to the subject land. Schedule C, which is resources, constraint areas, and waste management, identifies a small portion of the subject lands as selected sand and gravel resource of a secondary significance. The county official plan provides that in known deposits of mineral aggregate resources and on adjacent lands, development activities would preclude or hinder the establishment of new operations or access to the resource shall only be permitted if the resource use would not be feasible or the proposed land or development serves a greater long-term public interest and the issues of public health, public safety, and environmental impact are addressed. The identified resource appears to cover only a sliver of the northern portion of the lands on the area which is already developed with the dwelling. As such, it is not anticipated that the resource would be feasible for use in the future. Schedule D identifies the subject lands are on a provincial highway. Schedule E16 of the county official plan outlines criteria regarding lots being created on a county road and the requirements there. And as this is not a county road, then there is no requirements in that regard. There is a lot containing an active pit across the road from the subject lands, approximately 37 meters southeast, which falls in the township of North Frontenac in the county of Frontenac. Section D54 of the county official plan states that mineral aggregate operations shall be protected from development and activities that would preclude or hinder their expansion or continued use, or which would be incompatible for reasons of public health, public safety, and environmental impact. The next section states that where development is proposed within 300 meters of a pit or 500 meters of a quarry, the approval authority shall require a land use compatibility assessment to determine conformity with this plan. The applicant was required to submit a land use compatibility study in order to permit future development within 300 meters of an active pit, and the applicant chose not to complete the study. A zoning bylaw amendment to prohibit future residential development within 300 meters of the pit will be recommended as a condition of consent approval. There remains sufficient area on the retained lands for residential development outside of this 300-meter setback and the natural heritage features. Should the committee prefer an alternate condition to the zoning bylaw amendment, it is also presented for consideration, being that the owner enter into a development agreement, which is registered on title, that requires any future residential development to be located at least 300 meters from an active pit to the satisfaction of the township. The application for consent, together with the recommended conditions of approval, conforms to the policies of the official plan, of the county's official plan. With respect to the township's official plans, Schedule A1 of the official plan identifies the subject lands as rural. The rural area designation also permits the agricultural, rural, and residential uses. The existing commercial use and future residential use of the subject lands are also permitted. The proposed consent generally conforms to the rural area policies outlined in the township's official plan, with the intent to permit some development through rural designation in a manner which retains a rural character of the township, while ensuring there are no demands placed on the township for services which are costly or difficult to provide. The rural area designation permits commercial and residential uses, and as such, the existing and proposed use of the subject lands are permitted. The year-round residential use outlined in the official plan on new lots shall also comply with the minimum distance formulae, and a calculation was, or a review, sorry, was conducted. And that review to include whether there were potential barns within 750 meters of the lands. There are no barns or livestock in Addington Highlands within 750 meters of the proposed lot severance, and as such, the lot creation complies with the MDS. Policies for rural commercial uses are outlined in the official plan, and the proposed severed commercial lot exceeds the minimum lot area, has sufficient frontage, and is outside the hazardous areas, and is adequately serviced with the septic and well. The existing building supply business supports rural lifestyle and is compatible with the sensitive land uses in the surrounding area. The existing dwelling on the severed lot is accessory to the commercial use, and as such is permitted to remain on the same lot. Schedule B of the township's official plan is with regard to mineral resource areas, and I also identifies a portion of the severed land as a mineral aggregate resource area. Non-aggregate development may be permitted if the proposed use does not significantly hinder the future extraction. There is residential development on the subject lands, which is likely to preclude any introduction of new mineral aggregate resource operation, and as such, the residential use is not anticipated to further preclude extraction. The official plan also regulates the number of lots that can be created. A maximum of 3 lots, inclusive of the retained, can be created from an existing lot of record as of the date of the adoption of the official plan. And since there have been no severances to date, as such, the proposed lot addition or lot creation is permitted. As per the general consent policies, should the new lot should have the effect of infilling existing developed areas or result in rounding out of developed areas and not unduly extending developed areas. The proposed severance generally results in rounding out of the existing pattern of the developed area, which extends along Highway 41. The lot is developed with the residential and commercial use and meets the minimum size for residential and non-residential uses. The severed lot maintains the typical pattern of the development of the Highway 41, which is a mix of residential and commercial uses. The proposal does not require an undue extension of a road or public services. The severed and retained lots exceed the minimum lot area required. And a septic test hole inspection had been completed on the retained lands, which conforms to the conditions of the site and are adequate for a class 4 sewage system. The OP also requires a well be established as a condition of consent per the township water policy with regard to consents. A well will not be required as a condition of this consent where the proposed lot to be severed is greater than 1 hectare. The retained lands also are greater in size, so there will be no condition regarding a supply of water there. The retained lands have a proposed area of approximately 36 hectares, and there are no known water quality or quantity issues in the area, but the lands are within the significant groundwater recharge that is addressed through the recommended conditions of consent and implement the related recommendations of the Quinte Conservation Authority. The proposed consent conforms to the development policies of the official plan, which require appropriate setbacks, safe ingress and egress, and buffering where such is necessary to mitigate negative effects. There is sufficient area on the proposed retained land to maintain required setbacks from the township road and adequate frontage along and establish safe egress and ingress for future residential development. It is understood there is an existing entrance in the location proposed to be used to access the proposed retained lot, but is not clear if it has received formal approval from the Ministry of Transportation. As such, a recommended condition of consent is that the approval from MTO for the new access be retained, for the retained lands be obtained, if required. Based on the above, the recommended conditions of approval, the proposed development conforms to the township's official plan. With respect to the township zoning bylaw, the property has a split zoning of rural and general commercial. The entirety of the commercial severed lands are zoned rural, with the eastern corner of the vacant retained lands being zoned C1. The rural zone permits a range of uses, including single unit dwellings, but does not permit a building supply outlet. The C1 zone permits the building supply outlet and an accessory dwelling, but does not permit a standalone residential use. This misalignment of zone boundaries with the existing commercial is understood to be a mapping discrepancy that should be corrected through a future zoning bylaw amendment, which would align the boundaries of the severed lot with the C1 zone and the boundaries of the retained lot with the RU zone. Should the committee apply the recommended condition of consent requiring a zoning bylaw amendment to implement the 300-meter setback for the new residential development from the active pit, the same zoning bylaw amendment should also be used to correct the zoning of the severed and retained parcels to properly recognize the existing and proposed uses of the property. Should the committee apply the alternate condition, this correction to the zone boundaries would be considered by the township. The severed lands are proposed to accommodate the existing building supply outlet, and the accessory dwelling within the future C1 zone. The proposed severed lot meets the minimum lot area and frontage required in the zoning bylaw, and the existing structures comply with the prescribed setbacks of the lot and lot coverage. The retained land meets the minimum lot area and frontage required in the zoning bylaw, and the development and has adequate area for development on the retained lands to comply with all required setbacks, including the required setback from wetland and water courses on the property. Based on this, with recommended conditions of approval, the proposed development complies with the zoning bylaw. As mentioned, this application is being brought from deferral. it was considered in 2024. There was an additional new lot proposed at that time. That application has been revised to be just this one new lot because of constraints with the pit and required additional studies that were going to need to be done. But the county was notified, the public was notified, they were notified, the revisions was sent out as well. Quinte Conservation commented on the revised application, and they have no objection to the consent. Recommendations included, where appropriate and as recommended, conditions of consent specifically as it relates to the requirement for permits for works within the authority's regulated area, installation of any new well or septic system, and decommissioning of any unused wells on the property. The Ministry of Transportation, as I mentioned, were consulted. They commented in 2024. They approved the entrance to the retained land. Because it was a revised application, we submitted that revision. We have not heard. We assume there's going to be the same comment and that approval will be forthcoming. We checked as late as end of day yesterday, and we still hadn't received any comments from MTO. The recommendation from the planner is that the committee approve the application with conditions that were listed there. There has been another development that has come to light just this morning in thinking about the application, and that is the fire protection that is provided to the commercial lot and the pond. And I understand that there is a dry hydrant in the pond, and that provides fire protection to the commercial property. Currently, the application includes the pond on the retained lands, so the fire protection would not be on the commercial lot. We can speak to the applicant further about that. The recommended conditions thus far are in regard to one, zoning, a recommended condition that the owner obtains approval for the zoning bylaw amendment to replace the severed lands in the C1 zone and the retained lands in the RU zone, and to prohibit a new residential dwelling within 300 meters of the boundary of an active pit. The alternate condition would be that the owner enters into a development agreement with the township, with the effect being to prevent the erection of a new residential dwelling within 300 meters of the boundary of an active pit, and agrees to have the township register the sum title of the retained lands. And that the committee requests that council direct staff to correct the zoning of the subject property to properly reflect the commercial and residential uses of the property. Second condition is that the applicant shall obtain an entrance permit from the Ministry of Transportation for the retained lands if required. The third is that all conditions be satisfied and the certificate of the official be presented to the Township of Addington Highlands under this certification under Section 5342 of the Planning Act within 2 years of mailing of this notice, and this certificate must be registered within 2 years from the issuance of the certificate as required under Section 5343 of the Planning Act. That one, condition number 4, that one digital copy and one paper copy of the reference plan illustrating the consent as parts on the plan and verifying the measurements and metric be prepared and provided to the township prior to the issuance of the certificate of official. And the reference plan is prepared and dated and signed by an Ontario land surveyor. Condition 5 would be that the surveyor or applicant shall submit the draft reference plan for review and approval by the township prior to depositing the plan in land registry. 6, that prior to the issuance of the certificate of official, the owner applicant shall provide a draft deed or transfer to the township for its review and approval. After the issuance of the certificate of the official, the owner applicant's solicitor shall register the deed or transfer and provide a copy of registered transfer to the township. That all taxes, debentures, and amounts owing to the township on the subject lands be paid in full. That's condition 7. Condition 8, that the applicant is advised that they must obtain a permit from Quinte Conservation prior to any future development, including construction, filling, excavation, site grading, and change of use within 45 meters of the seasonal high water mark or top of bank of any adjacent water courses, and within 30 meters of any wetland boundary or 45 meters of a seasonal high water mark or bank or top of bank adjacent to any water body, whichever measurement is greater. The applicant, condition number 9, the applicant is advised that the property is in a area of significant groundwater recharge and that any new well must be constructed in accordance with requirements of Ontario Regulation 903, and that any septic system should be located down gradient of any water wells and be designed and approved in accordance with the Ontario Building Code. And finally, that any unused wells on the property be decommissioned in accordance with the requirements of Ontario Regulation 903. With respect to the dry hydrant and the pond source of water, we can speak to the applicant about that and see what his thoughts are on that and whether he wishes to move the boundary to include the pond on the commercial, or there could be a condition that the final lot fabric for the severed parcel, being the commercial lot, include the requisite space and facility for a required firefighting water supply pond and associated dry hydrant to the satisfaction of the township. Thank you. And of course, Mr. Hook is here, so he can speak to that.
Thank you, Patricia. Yes, welcome, Mr. Hook. Tracy. So, yeah, do you want to speak? If you have other questions, yeah, please go ahead, or comments. The dry hydrant.
For something so simple, it's very complex, isn't it?
Yeah,
The pond is going to stay full. I'm not going to move it. I'm not going to move the boundary because the pond water is there. It has been there. It's not going anywhere. So it's always going to have that. Commercial lot will always have access to the pond.
right. So, and currently, obviously, it's the same owner of both of those properties. In the future, which could be decades down the road or a century down the road, there could be different owners. So how would that be dealt with at that time? I guess the question we might have is would it cause, the concern could be, is it going to cause an issue if you had ended up with two different owners down the road? I don't know.
No. I could always move the hydrant back onto that property. The hydrant right now is over the lot, just on the other side of the ditch that's there. I could pull it back onto that other side.
I don't know if other members of the committee have questions about it. Yeah, we're just trying to figure out how could you make this work so you wouldn't end up with problems down the road. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Deborah.
Is that something you could do yourself?
Yes.
Then it's not gonna cost a lot of money. Just
No.
more pipe, right?
It's more pipe, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Sorry. So I pulled the map up here again and the sketch. So what did you say, Mr. Hook? You would pull the pond, you would extend the pond so it's over the line, or?
Not moving the pond. I'm just moving the hydrant onto the commercial property.
Okay.
Yeah, Deputy Hook.
So just for clarification, the hydrant is just a connection to the pond underground, right?
That's
So
correct.
you're just moving the suction line back on the
Yeah.
commercial, so.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. So that's not an issue, I don't.
And
think.
as long as I own both pieces of property, I don't see there's an issue anyway. At this point, should I sell the commercial property, I could move it then.
Right. So the question would be if you sold yeah. If the if the retained, if your 90 acres was sold, I'm just making up a scenario.
Mhm.
Trying to think this. If the 90 acres was sold to outside the family and the family, you retained the 10-acre business and you were drawing from someone else's pond, how would that be dealt with? Because
I guess
legally-
it could be a condition of the sale, couldn't it? That's the commercial property could always have, for fire protection, would have access to the pond because it's just, all it is just a suction hose in the pond. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure, I had another question maybe tied to that, I guess it is tied to that. And I don't know, if Patricia can answer that. Can it be registered on title that you would have on title for the title for the 90 acres
Hmm.
that you're providing water that you will allow
For fire use to the
firefighting
commercial
protection to be
property.
drawn from that pond? Is that something that can be done? I don't know.
Why not?
Registering on title is becoming more difficult at the land registry office. There are only certain agreements they will permit to be registered on title. Something else that may be considered would be a right of way to the pond.
Yeah,
just-
I mean, there's all kinds of ways around it. That would be a legal document.
The development
No,
an agreement?
for access to the pond for the water use. They don't have to have access to the pond, but as long as they have the water usage from the pond, that's all that they would need, right? They aren't gonna need anything else to put out a fire other than water.
I guess it depends. The way it's shown on the sketch, the commercial lot doesn't abut the pond. So the retained land was going to be on the east side of the pond as well. A small strip, according to the sketch. I don't know the measurement.
The what was on the what side of the pond?
I can give you a map. So it looked like there was gonna be a strip of land right there.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So what I was thinking was, if there is retained land between the commercial and the pond, essentially they would have to come on to the retained land, which could be different ownership to get
They don't have to
access.
come onto the pond. It's just, all it is just a pipe underground that goes from the water
Yeah,
to
you're
the
saying
hydrant,
move-
which is
yeah,
on the
if
commercial
you move
property.
Yeah, if you move the hydrant back further, yeah.
So they don't have to enter into the pond. All they're doing is drawing water off, put out a fire, which isn't gonna happen anyway.
Yeah.
And Mr. Hook brought up another comment, if I might repeat your comment, is that you think you're asking whether a right of way to the pond on I'll call it the retained land,
Mhm.
is providing access to the pond. And does that allow you to draw water from the pond?
Do I want them to fish there too? No.
No, so I'm not sure you want to go down that route or not, but you mentioned it, but I just wasn't sure whether that's an option or not.
All I'm saying is that as long as they've got access to the water to fight a fire, they don't need anything other than that.
Councillor Thompson?
Well, as you'd said, could that not be left so that in the event of a sale, like that would be part of the condition?
It would be a
You
legal
know-
requirement as part of the sale.
Right, like, I mean, you can do it, anything in your agreement, what you're trying to do when you're selling it, so it could be addressed at that time. You know, if somebody wants to buy that 90 acres, they say, well, what about the pond? Well, we need it for this, and if it's not part of if you don't want to agree to that condition, then you don't sell it, but I don't know if that looks like to be about the easiest and simplest way to fix that matter.
Patricia, do you have a
Thank you.
comment on that?
I do. That makes sense. It sounds appropriate. We still need to look further out than one sale. So when the current owner owns it and he's aware of both, you make a sale and you ensure all of these things are included. How do we ensure that the next sale includes that same agreement that the owner of the retained land is aware that his pond could be drained for the fire service? That type of thing. So we're just looking at multi-generations or in the future with the lot creation. If the hydrant is on the property and able to access the pond, if it was any other water source, would there be a concern and an issue? I'm not certain. It's something That's more of a legal question. You know, what would a lawyer say if you were draining all the water off of someone else's property? I'm not certain, so.
There's a hydrant right across the road at Bishop Lake. The first thing they do when they have a fire, they go ahead and they bring in the tanker. Then they set up a portable tank on the ground. And then they go ahead and they shuttle water back and forth. If I didn't have a hydrant, they can hook up to the hydrant that's there.
Mm.
But I mean, you're 4 minutes away from Bishop Lake with a truck.
I mean, we're not trying to make this difficult, Tracy, in any way at all. We're trying to figure out how do we just work our way through this? Councillor Thompson?
I think, you know, when you're talking about in the event of another sale, so it would be the same procedure, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to buy it, well, you have to understand this is the issue we have here. If you just don't want to agree to that, then you don't buy it or you don't sell it. I understand what you're saying, but you know, it's kind of, I don't know, to me, it's kind of straightforward that this is the condition of the sale. Either you do it or you don't. And I don't know, I don't know if the whole thing is legal or not, but that would be something for a lawyer to actually, I guess, talk about.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Yes, and the only thing to consider too is that when creating a new lot, you don't want to have to look to certain things that are going to happen by other individuals in the future. It would be best just to know that everything is all taken care of with the creation of the lot. The municipality covered all of the bases, and there's nothing that's going to arise in the future to cause complications. And as I mentioned, with the dry hydrant being located on the commercial property, so they have access to it. They still have that water supply available then. And this pond is quite significant in size and exceeded the calculations required to provide that protection service as far as I understand. So it's not as though, and being that large of size, it's unlikely that it could be filled in and you know, made so that it was not usable by the commercial lot, by the owner of the retained. And I think, and it's also, was it part of a natural water body and made,
We dug it.
so it's a dug pond. So I mean, there is that potential then that it could be filled back in, and it's also
30 feet deep. You're not filling it back in.
Sorry?
It's 30 feet deep. It's 400 by 200. You're not filling it back in.
Yeah, so I mean, that's probably not an issue then, right? So perhaps just that hydrant being located moved and located onto the commercial is sufficient. It's just a matter of actually draining. It's not like it's a natural water course on Crown land, not owned by a person, and draining that pond. So that's the only issue that I think would arise is in the future, owned by two totally separate people who don't know each other, and there's a fire and you drain that pond significantly. That would be
You
the
can't
issue.
drain that. That's 1,500 gallons a minute going into that pond. There's no way you can drain that pond with what you've got.
Yeah. So it's likely technically not an issue as far as the water, the supply and that type of thing. It's just, you know, for the proper lot development, what should that condition be? And likely moving that hydrant will suffice, and we could, and the proposed condition that the final lot fabric of the severed parcel include the requisite space and facility for required firefighting supply, pond and associated dry hydrant to the satisfaction of the township. That could be reworked, or in the end, it's all to the satisfaction of the township if the hydrant could be on the new lot and be connected to the pond, that may work. It's up to the committee, but we could even seek some legal advice on it, whatever the committee prefers.
Yes, I find this so very interesting. So right now the hydrant is in the pond. Okay, and so we need to get that hydrant out of the pond. and put it on the new lot, right? And so we have a pump and we do that. I guess there's no guarantees in life. Who's going to buy the property, who isn't going to buy it, whether you're going to keep it in the family forever. Um, to be quite honest, I think that's the simplest thing is just move the hydrant. And I'd hate to say this, but let the chips fall where they may for future. We can't predict the future here. How far are we going to go? 75 years, 25 years, 10 years to think about what's going to happen? I think if we have some way of protecting this business and the land there, I think we're doing our job right now. And that's what we're here for, to figure this out and not think, as I say, 50 years, 75 years, 25 years ahead of what could happen, all these scenarios. It could never end. So I'm quite happy with the scenario if we can get the a hydrant on the new lot. I'm okay with that.
Councillor Olivier?
I was just going to ask, that pond, you put it there for a reason, and more than likely for the business purpose, or?
We dug it so we had a spot to swim. And-
Oh, okay.
And having a spot that we can draw water out for fire was a bonus.
Okay, so it really doesn't have any other purpose then? Okay, so I don't see it an issue. I would agree with Councillor Yance that, just move the pipe over. And the pipe is attached, and if there's a controversy later on when something sells, then it would be to the buyer and the seller to negotiate on how they want to do that. Because from what it sounds like, the new buyer of your property, the commercial property, probably wouldn't even know about this pipe.
Well, I mean, all they are gonna see is the hydrant, right?
Yeah,
The fire company is the one, I mean, the hydrant's no good to the home, to the person with the commercial property, because
Right.
what's he gonna do with it? It's a 6-inch pipe. The fire company's one that's got tied to it.
yeah. And has that drain pipe ever been, or hydrant ever been used?
No, never.
Okay, and you've had it there how long?
4 years, 5 years. ever
Oh,
since the
okay,
building's
so
been up.
Okay, so it's fairly new then, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree the extension of the pipe.
Patricia, go ahead.
Yes, and just to clarify, the reason for the hydrant was because of the extended commercial use and the very large buildings that were put up, warehouse buildings. So it was under the Ontario Building Code that it needed a water supply. Fortunately, the pond is able to supply that hydrant. For here, for example, the hill out front, we needed to put in a tank to fight to have a water supply. So it's part of the building code with requirements to those large buildings.
Can I ask, how big is your tank out there to go ahead and protect this building? How big is your tank out there to go ahead and protect this building? Slightly smaller than the pond, right?
Yes, not quite that size.
Yeah.
2 tanks, I know.
Nowhere in comparison, simply. My view is I'm comfortable with the applicant moving the hydrant onto the commercial property. The risk of this becoming an issue is so small that I'm quite willing to live with it as a member of the committee. Patricia, go ahead.
And I just was going to make one final comment. I know I've seen the design for dry hydrants, but could you just refresh my memory? So the dry hydrant could be located on the commercial lot, piped to the supply. However, there is an end in the pond, right? And so if any future work needs to be done and between the hydrant and the pond, that's where the right of way that I mentioned would be a good idea, and that you could do that right of way so the owner has access just to that.
What's gonna happen?
How do you
to the pipe
restrict it that
underground?
that's their only access is an issue?
What's
But,
gonna happen to the pipe underground?
pardon,
What's gonna happen to the pipe underground?
when you're done?
No, Like, has anything ever happened to one of your hydrants along the highway?
I couldn't speak, I don't know.
No.
And I don't know how they work. I mean, honestly, I'm just bringing up scenarios just so for the committee to consider.
Councilor Levier?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if this was part of building the commercial side of it, that pipe was put there, that hydrant was put there. What about the retaining person using that pipe? Because is it still necessary for them to have it for their commercial property you follow what I'm saying? No? No.
Maybe not
There-
exactly.
There was a pipe that was put there, from what I just understood, for the purpose of emergency use, because it was a commercial property. If you move it to the other side of the property, how does that impact the existing property?
Okay, so the dry hydrant essentially, it's more or less a hydrant, but it's the fire truck hooks up to the dry hydrant, goes underground, the pipe goes over, it goes in, it may be under the water where it enters
Yeah.
the water course. It'll have a screen type device on the end.
Mhm.
If the applicant is relocating it, all he would end up doing is going to where the hydrant is now, digging down, adding more pipe and shifting the hydrant over the property line
Yes,
onto the commercial property.
but leaving a draw point on his property.
No. Oh, the drop point, the part that goes into the pond would stay there.
No, I guess I'm not explaining myself properly. There should be, in theory, there should be two of these now, if we're adding it to the adjacent.
No, it's not required on the retained lot. It was only on the
Okay.
retained lot because the applicant owned both. It was all one lot.
Okay, but now it won't be, I guess, is the point.
No, because they're gonna sever a chunk off and it
Yeah.
just happens that the hydrant is just it's over the lot line.
So the retaining land or part is going to be residential. It's not commercial anymore?
No. No, yes, it's rural.
Okay, that answers.
The retained lot, the 90 acres is rural, zoned rural. Yes,
Okay, so it's no
non-commercial.
longer required for that property.
not required for the
Okay,
retained,
that
no.
clarifies. Thank you.
Yeah. Deputy Hook?
I think this whole issue with the hydrant is a pretty minor point when you look at the whole severance thing. I know Tracy has already spent $8,000 on a drainage study for that property that he wants to cut off. And we had some discussion even with the Davison application that some of these costs of getting a severance are concerning. The two recommendations here, I think that's what we should be looking at, and the cost there. There's a zoning bylaw. We know that the map, the township map was drawn incorrectly when it was done. I'm not blaming the township for that. I think that was a planner drew the map, but it's incorrectly. So I'm not sure what the zoning bylaw, why the landowner is required to change the zoning bylaw or the mapping, because that wasn't the applicant's doing. That was an error by the planner, drew the map wrong. So maybe Patricia could answer that one, because I'm a little confused on that.
Yeah, that's the way it would appear to me. I mean, I wasn't here when the maps were created, but there is a line in the original mapping that sort of followed the original lot that was the additional lot that was going to be created, a small lot at the south corner. So I would interpret it that they looked at that parcel and they mapped it in, it was mapped incorrectly. I'm not certain if that's the case, but that's what I presume. At the time, the landowner had the opportunity to ensure the mapping was correct. But many people were not involved in that process, right? We hear from people all the time, don't even know we had a zoning bylaw. So it was my recommendation that that could be a condition that the township could do that correction in mapping. However, that lot is now increasing in size. So the commercial at the time when the zoning bylaw was created was not, the commercial activity didn't extend as far as what it would, as it does now. So even then, it still would have probably only been mapped out in that centralized front portion of the lot. Wouldn't include the full 10 acres. So the mapping would have still been split zoning, partially commercial, partially rural, and wouldn't have covered the full lot. The recommendation now for rezoning would legalize the property. It would allow that use to be existing there. It would cover the full area that's proposed in the mapping. But the municipality can, in their zoning bylaw amendment, which is coming up in the future, agree to make that mapping change. It still doesn't, and until that time, the property doesn't it doesn't comply. So it's going to sit there with that legal non-conforming use that it currently has. If it was rezoned, it would be to take in that entire lot, would provide for the C1 zoning. The commercial use would be permitted in the zone, and it would be not legal non-conforming. It would be legal. It would be rezoned to be legally permitted in that zone. Currently, it'll sit as legal non-conforming until such time that the township can remap the property.
So are you saying that if he waits and till the township does the mapping, then there'd be no cost of that to the applicant, but if he wants it done sooner, then he would have to pay the cost of the zoning amendment? And if so, what would the cost be approximately? Because I think
Right.
we discussed some figures of $30,000 to $50,000 for a zoning amendment around.
Now, a zoning amendment as a condition of the consent
Mhm.
would be an $800 application fee. It's reduced from a typical zoning amendment application for any other time.
Okay,
If it's a condition, it's normally 1,200. We reduce it to 800 as a condition. And then there would be the creation of a planning report, the zoning amendment, the notices in the newspaper. I think the report, honestly, I can't quote for certain. I think it was $1,000. I'm not sure if I provided that number to you. I think I did get a quote on that. And then just the notices, I think the notices are around $300 in the paper. So you're looking at 800 and 1,000 and 300 for.
so on the
Total cost
first, the
incurred.
recommended condition, would it be correct to say it'd be under $5,000 to go that route? Would you
I
say?
think it would be less, I think it would be less than that, but
Okay.
yeah.
And that is the preferred option, right? I mean, that would be
That-
done faster. The other one, it could be years of waiting,
Our
right?
official plan has taken a long time. We haven't got through that yet.
So it's really, I mean, if you want anything done, you don't want to even consider the second option.
Yeah, it's a ways out. I mean, we're looking at definitely, I would say 2 years before you would get, the zoning bylaw is going to be quite comprehensive, that review. So it's going to be quite some time to get that done, but it's legal non-conforming. The use is permitted to be there. There's no issue that way. So I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just something to consider if the property was ever to be sold, that type of thing.
Right, okay. May
Go
I
ahead.
ask one more question?
Yes.
Is there anything else on that list of conditions that you would expect to be problematic as far as delays and? I mean, obviously you would have to get a surveyor going on this and do a lot of that paperwork, and it's all pretty straightforward.
Everything, so number one, number two, so the zoning or the alternate condition, the entrance permit from the ministry. Those are really the only conditions that are site specific to this application. All of the requirements regarding the certificate of official and the surveys, all of those are typical, included on all consent decisions, payment of taxes and any money owing, anything to do with Quinte Conservation. Permits are required within 45 meters anyway, if warranted. So that's all applicable no matter what, even if there was no severance. The only other regulation that is, or condition that is there is the reference to regulation, Ontario Regulation 903, and that any new water supplies need to meet that regulation. And Mr. Hook's probably familiar with that, so.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to understand something though, further to item 1 in the condition, there's a recommended condition on the alternate conditions. The alternate condition says entering into a development agreement. And that we request staff to correct the zoning. Essentially, it'll get corrected when we redo this. So what the development agreement? I'm going to say the cost of a development agreement, because we already have templates for that. Is
There-
that just maybe not the preferred way, but is that a less costly way and still satisfies our requirements?
You're right, there are costs associated with that, so we do have a template and we can draft that agreement. It does need to be registered on title. Typically, the solicitor will review the agreement and then they would register that on title. And I think you are able to do that for probably just under $600.
Okay, so the alternate condition B could be done for a very minor cost. Okay. And that'd be up to the committee. They can decide which way they want to go. Because if we went with the recommended condition, if we wait, it will get corrected eventually anyway. Okay. So,
Sorry.
go ahead, Patricia.
And I discussed these with Mr. Hook as well. I believe he's in favor of the development agreement and waiting on the rezoning, but maybe he's changed his mind since
I
then.
would say so, yeah, because I mean, whatever's the quickest, easiest, fastest.
Yeah.
Because I've had a surveyor ready for 3 years, so.
Okay. Go ahead.
And to that point, the surveyor, once you get this approval, no matter which condition is applied, you could proceed with that work and then work on the other concurrently. And, we could do that at the same time, depending on which route you would prefer. If it's a zoning bylaw amendment and bringing everything into conformity and including that 300-meter setback, we could start that process right away as well.
So, Mr. Hookie, which one do you want to go for, the alternate condition, the development agreement, or the zoning bylaw amendment?
Why not?
Development?
Why not?
Okay, so thank you. Yes, Deputy Hook?
If the Tracy wanted to sell his property, and being that the commercial is non-conforming in its current location, that's out of sight of the zoning bylaw, would that be a hindrance on trying to sell a property like that?
Typically, the municipality gets a request from purchaser's lawyer looking for a zoning compliance letter.
Mhm.
And the municipality provides a letter to them, letting them know what the property is currently zoned. We do typically state that the activity on the lot may have a legal non-conforming status. And then the lawyer can comment on that to their client, and whatever I don't know. I have no idea if you were to be the purchaser, if you went to buy it I know zoning comes up a lot with financial matters. So, but I couldn't say for sure, but if there is a sale, we do typically get a request from a solicitor and we provide the zoning and information. And if the lot is zoned and the use is known not to be permitted on that zone, we could include the statement that, there may be a legal non-conforming use status, but it is on the owner of that property to prove that legal non-conforming status. It's not on the municipality to just say yes or no.
Go ahead, Tracy.
So if I wanted to put up another building on that property, another commercial building, could that interfere with that permit?
now that it's not an existing lot of record and not zoned commercial, I would not want to say that you could just go ahead. The existing lot of record status that you currently have and the fact that the use is legal non-conforming and you could expand that use within that lot boundary, then you could get the building permit. You change that lot to a new lot, waiting on rezoning. I'm not certain you could put up another commercial building. I don't know that answer for certain. I'd want to talk to the planner about that. I think you might run into trouble that way. You could still seek a permission application and do a minor variance to expand the use, I think. But I think it would, you wouldn't necessarily just have the as of right to put up that additional building without some sort of Planning Act application.
So what would a minor variance cost on something like that? Are we talking 5,000?
Similar to the zoning bylaw amendment, the minor variance application fee is only $500 rather than $8, but we still need that planning report. And then comments from those outside agencies, including conservation and MTO. MTO doesn't charge, Quinny Conservation charges for a report. So you're still looking at that probably $1,800, $2,000 mark for the planning report. Outside agency fees, $500. So $2,800, zoning bylaw, $800 application fee, planning report, somewhere similar, $1,000 to $1,500. Quinny Conservation comments, $500. So
So it's a wash?
it's getting
Almost.
close. Getting close. You've got
Okay.
the additional fee in the application fee, but it's close.
So it almost sounds like it'd be better to go with the other. Go and get it rezoned. Rather than,
Yeah,
because if I
if you
want to
went-
shove up another building and have to go through all that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, like I'm saying, over.
yes. Yeah, Tracy's saying. You're kind of thinking when you hear the cost, I mean, give or take $1,000, so to speak, here or there, but it's, yeah. It's cleaner if you went with the, the zoning bylaw amendment by far, because then you don't, yeah. Okay, so is that the direction you want?
Yes, zoning
Okay.
bylaw.
Okay, so far, the changes to this document, the draft we have would be that the Committee of Adjustment would be selecting the recommended condition, which is A, 1A, and that there would be an additional requirement just to move or locate this dry hydrant on the commercial property. That would be the only changes that I'm hearing so far from anyone or from the applicant.
Right.
You're okay with both of those? Okay. Councillor Yance, go ahead.
I will make that recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Yance, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Are there any other comments? No. My only comment, it's been a good discussion. It's better to work through this now. It's been an hour, but it is better to do this now than you go down the road and you say, well, I didn't really realize I had to do that and be surprised. So, okay, so we will take the vote. Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Deputy Hook.
I will abstain.
Yeah, oh, yes, abstain. Councillor Levier
Yes.
and Councillor Yanch.
Yes.
And that motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Tracy, for being here to help work through this and answer some questions. Okay, let's move on. on to correspondence. The first one is item 8.1 from Mr. Frank Smith, severance 2025/07. Patricia?
It was my understanding that Mr. Smith was going to attend today's meeting and wanted some clarification on the items, the conditions included in his decision. As he is not here, I would recommend deferral.
Okay. So someone want to make that moved by Deputy Hook that we defer this to a future meeting, seconded by, I think it was Councillor Yanch. Call the vote, Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Deputy Hook.
Yes.
Councillor Olivier.
Yes.
Councillor Yanch.
Yes.
That motion is carried. The second item for information here is E2 Doug Smith, concerns over shared entrance related to severance 2025/3. Patricia?
This information is provided to the committee really to, as information with the regard to the request from Mr. Smith if something changes with the entrance. So again, it's just information. It could be received at this point.
We'll have a motion to receive that. Moved by Councillor Levier, seconded by Councillor Yanch. The vote, Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Deputy Hook.
Yes.
Councillor Levier.
Yes.
Councillor Yanch.
Yes.
That motion is carried. Item 8.3 is Deborah and William Suddick, request for cancellation certificate. Patricia?
Thank you. So this is a request for a cancellation certificate. So we've done a few of these in the past. This one's received from Deborah and William Suddick. The Suddicks are in the process of purchasing their Shore Road allowance, and as their lot was created by a consent or a subdivision plan in 1968, you cannot actually add property to a parcel that was created by subdivision or consent because it has a once a consent, always a consent rule. So to ensure that the Shore Road allowance merges with the property and doesn't remain a separate lot, they're required to cancel that consent. That was never able to happen in the past. It was a change to the Planning Act to permit cancellation certificates. Before, you used to have to deed a small 1 foot by 1 foot square to the municipality so that the lot was no longer that lot that was created. The introduction of a cancellation certificate allows for that subdivision parcel to be no longer deemed part of the subdivision, and that lot creation be canceled. The owners are aware of this. They made this request. The only implications that would come from that if they were to own other abutting land, it could merge with their parcel. In this case, they do not own other abutting land, and they've been made aware of that situation. But it will allow the Shore Road allowance to merge. So there was a recommendation there to receive the report, and in accordance with section 5345 of the Planning Act as amended, a cancellation certificate be issued for part 3, Plan 947, Geographic Township of Anglesea, and more specifically described as parts 2 and 5 on Plan 2279, as in LA 124368.
Thank you, Patricia. Are there any questions? No, so Patricia just read the staff recommendation. To someone who move that? Councillor Yanch, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Call the vote, Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Deputy Hook.
Yes.
Councillor Levier.
Yes.
Councillor Yanch.
Yes.
And that motion is carried, and we'll have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Olivier, Councillor Yanch, call the vote, Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Deputy Hook.
Yes.
Councillor Olivier.
Yes.
Councillor Yanch.
Yes.
And that motion is carried. I was going to say good morning, but it is good afternoon. Take care, everyone.